And here comes the former GM of the Golden State Warriors, who so many of you know so well for his work here. He's now, of course, an exec with the Atlanta Hawks and a scout. But Larry Riley, who was instrumental in Steph and Clay both wearing Warrior jerseys and Jerry West being within the Warrior organization as well. So good afternoon to you, Larry Riley. Thank you for coming on. How are you?
I'm doing well. Obviously, it's a sad day for those of us who knew Jerry and for a lot of people in the basketball world as well as the sports world. But, as I was thinking about him today, I don't know of any person who played through a career and then went to the front office and spent, basically his entire life and had success at each level and never lost the love for the game. He was amazing that way.
No doubt. And if I get you back to the time when Jerry West joined the organization, do you remember what the conversations were when it was decided that you wanted to bring Jerry West into the organization?
Yes, I do. And I think, in all honesty, Joe Lacob was looking for some way to help the organization and to bring credibility to the organization. And so when we sat down and met with Jerry, he still had plenty of energy and a great deal of interest in basketball. And we just exchanged thoughts, and I guess I got to know him maybe about 1994, 95, somewhere in there. So I knew him. We were not best friends at that time, and I knew him. And Bob Myers was just coming on board, and Bob had known him from being in Los Angeles, and so we just exchanged some thoughts. Jerry had the same feeling that the rest of us did, is that this thing is a sleeping giant if we can just get it right. And it happened.
Larry Riley is with us here on Willard and Dibs. We're going to pause for a second. He's at the airport right now. We're going to see if we can get a little bit of a quieter spot because, quite frankly, I'm pretty engaged on these answers.
No doubt.
I want to hear every single word because I know exactly where I want to go next. Would love to get the story of how Jerry West came to the Golden State Warriors. I think we know some of the story, but would love to hear it through Larry's eyes and ears and his recollection and whatnot. And then also, I really want to know what characteristics Jerry highlighted when he was scouting a player. We good to go? Okay, let's bring Larry Riley back in. So, Larry, thank you again for being with us. Can you maybe just share a story or two of what brought Jerry to the Warriors? Was that just a phone call from you? How did it all come to be?
No, I did not. I didn't play the role in initiating that. That came from Joe Lacob and his ownership group, and that's where it all started. And as we met with Jerry, I was just amazed. He still had a pulse for the game, still really had a desire to see if he could do something to contribute.
And once he came in, how was his role immediately? Was he more of an advisor? Did he take somewhat of an active role in shaping things? How did that work in the early days with Jerry West on board working with you and your team?
He was a great advisor. There's no question about that. And he wasn't there day to day. He stayed in Los Angeles, but he attended most of the home games, and he would come to meetings from time to time. And it was just great to have somebody like him to bounce your ideas off of and then listen to if he had anything that he wanted to offer. And he was still very active, very sharp, and I would guess right up to the end.
Larry, we know that Jerry is, at least as the stories go, he firmly wanted the Warriors to keep Clay. We know his role in bringing Kobe Bryant to the Lakers. It leads me to this question. When he was looking at a young prospect, what were the characteristics he was really looking for?
I I think the main thing was that he felt that a player had to have a real desire to play the game and to understand the game. Jerry had a great understanding of the game, of course, but he looked for a player who had an understanding of the game, and he wanted a guy who could play both ends of the floor, and he looked at that. And as well, for example, as we looked at Klay Thompson, Bob Myers had joined us, and Travis Holt was there, and we had scouted Klay and so forth. I don't think Jerry ever saw him play, but he saw him in a workout in Los Angeles. And when he came in, we were talking about him. And when Jerry West supported it, he just made that, okay, this is a home run. And our biggest problem now is, can we get him in the draft? But he obviously liked shooters. And at that time, he was looking, if he was looking for size, he was looking for size with quickness.
Was he kind of ahead of the curve on that, Larry? Because now we look at what you're describing, and it seems like every team is looking for that. And we've got, Boston with a 7'3" small forward in Porzingis, and you've got all this size and quickness around the league. Was Jerry West ahead of the curve in trying to identify those sorts of hybrid players?
I would say so. I would say he liked that kind of thing. Now, of course, he had the Lakers, the Showtime Lakers that were so good. The Lakers never totally fell apart, but then he rebuilt them with Shaq and Kobe, and Shaq certainly wasn't that kind of a guy. But by the time he got to Golden State and we were having discussions, he was looking for mobility. And, of course, Steph brought in a great change into the game, but Jerry was right there with it.
Larry Riley, former Warriors GM, is joining us here on Willard and Dibs 95.7 The Game. Larry, you mentioned what Jerry said about Klay when you were potentially getting ready to draft him. What do you remember with regard to conversations 10 years ago when there was the thought of potentially trading Klay for Kevin Love?
That was somebody else's thought, and it was never a part of the organization that I was involved in. We weren't going to. There was even a story that we would trade both Klay and Steph, and that never came up. That never came through Bob Myers or Travis Slink or me, and I never had that conversation with Jerry.
Okay, so you guys never even really got close or considered trading Klay. Is that right?
That is correct. People don't want to believe it. It's there.
All right. Well, and what about this, Larry? Just simply this Warrior dynasty. Does this happen without Jerry West?
It's hard to say. There's so many people who played a crucial role in it. I would think certainly. Well, obviously, you remember that Jerry West was part of the delegation that went and sought Kevin Durant, and certainly that has to have an impact on the decision that was made there. And then he helped us make decisions as we went along. So I've got to say, he was a good contributor to the success of the Warriors, and Warriors got championships as a result of his contribution.
Larry, I know it's a busy day, as we can hear in the background. We thank you so much for taking a few minutes of your time to hop in.
It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm glad to, get to say some good things about Jerry, because there's nothing else to be said except good.
There it is. Larry, thank you, sir. Larry Riley, the former general manager of the Warriors, who, that's interesting enough in and of itself.
Right.
Again, we have this sort of, and this isn't